Now let's talk with Christine Chakoian. Christine, thank you for such a powerful and important message, both about memory and about hospitality. So let me say first, how does just the regular man invoke hospitality? Because you don't just walk in the street and say, oh, you're a Muslim? Come to my house for dinner.
Right?
Exactly. What do you do and how do you go about that?
Exactly.
What would you advise?
Well, hospitality, of course, starts with being at table with one another, and I think that's very important. And our faith traditions could do a lot more at discovering ways. I know at a Presbyterian church I served in the city, we had a very close relationship with a synagogue, and we broke bread together many times. Intentionality is a part of it. But hospitality comes in other forms. I think about the hospitality of treating the other as friend, of assuming the best in someone rather than assuming the worst, in welcoming differences as a way not only to get to know this surprise, but also somehow to get to know oneself simply by knowing the other. The other trick of hospitality, as anyone who has hosted anything knows, is that the whole goal is to be very prepared so that it seems effortless when you get there. So preparing ourselves with the knowledge of other faiths and people right around us.
And we very much have a tradition in Passover where you purify yourself. Literally, you clean out the chametz, the matzah, the unleavened bread, to prepare yourself to take out that which is evil, take it out of your internal self in order to prepare for others to come in.
Exactly. You make room. You make space. Right, right.
You know, Christine, you told these two beautiful rite of passage stories, one in communion and one in college.
Yes.
And both of them had to do with the meal, and both of them had to do with your growing passion and commitment for your faith as a young person.
That's right.
As a major leader in the Presbyterian Church USA, how do you make young people, young Presbyterians, passionate about their faith today?
It's very exciting. Right now, what amazes me is that there's this resurgence, I would call it a revival, of interest in faith, of digging deeper into one's roots. I serve on a seminary board, and for a long time we were welcoming older people, second career people. We have this resurgence of young people coming into seminary right now. So I think part of it is that sense of looking for identity in this multicultural, global, fast-paced, changing world, and to help young people discover in their own tradition that there's so much richness there. It may start in the home, it may start in one's place of faith, it may start in conversations that we have, but looking deeper at what's already there. You don't have to look outside of yourself to begin to find. And I think you're in better communication when you know yourself a little bit too.
Absolutely, but Christine, I think sometimes we look back at memory, like you spoke, and we don't always find beautiful nuggets in our tradition. We have moments in every tradition where we wish that maybe slipped by.
Yes.
What do you tell people when they have elements of their own tradition that they may feel ashamed of or embarrassed by, or that they'd like to ignore?
Yes, absolutely. I do think it's a lot like growing up in a family. You grow up in a family, and every single family, I don't care how saintly, has some dark moments.
Yeah.
So, so there's a resolution that happens, and that's a part of growing up. You don't pretend it didn't happen, but you begin as a young adult and then as an adult to reflect on those things with a new perspective. And I think sometimes it is only in retrospect that we find the deeper meaning of what's gone on. When we reflect back, when I was in 8th grade, I had no clue. I mean, it was a lovely ceremony, and it was a rite of passage. But it's only much later when I looked back on it that I fully grasped. So even simply providing the experiences for young people and then helping people reconnect and reflect on even the dark times.
Yeah. Your parents probably asked you at, breakfast the next morning, what'd you do yesterday? And you were like, oh, nothing.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Wait, you'll have older kids and you'll see it's like nothing happened.
Although
I am getting fluent in that.
Yeah.
Though, you know, I have to say, my father and mother were both very active in the church. Dad was a leader in the church, and I think we sometimes underestimate the power of parental example, even when it looks like we're not paying any attention to what our parents are doing.
Oh,
That's very interesting.
You know, I have a 2.5-year-old. That line is on the tip of my tongue. You are underestimating, kiddo, the power of your parents' example.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
You got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Let's see.
Well, but it's really true. My daughter is now a sophomore in college, and you wonder how much of it connects. But in fact, it's through, not through just my teaching, but also through the congregation that I serve, that she has seen all of these other examples of people who've embraced their faith and learned.
And we don't know when they're actually watching.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
Let's continue on the parenthood theme for a second.
Right.
It might be the most challenging spiritual thing a lot of us do.
Well, that is true.
So I told my mother, I'm like, Zaid, my son, he will get a glass of water, he will look at me, and he will spill it on the floor. And I'll be like, Zaid, right? And my mom's like, 300 days in a row, I poured your orange juice, and you spilled it on the floor. You would think I would learn, right? She said,
That's remarkable.
well, yeah. But you know, I want to connect that to something, the theme of the show, which is how do we have see the awe that you spoke of in communion and at table with Muslims and Jews in the challenges of everyday life, like when our kid is spilling orange juice on the floor 300 days in a row.
That is exactly right. I think all of our traditions have a sense of the sacredness of time, and that you do not squander the gift that God has given you, that this is, life itself is a precious entity. And so, you know, our children grow so fast, they really do. Savoring the time, being present in the moment, it's trite, but it's so true that there are 1,000 things that could distract us from what is going on right in front of us, and asking where God is in the midst of this can be enormously helpful. Sometimes it's simply by learning the gift of patience and abiding love, as we read in the New Testament, as a gift of the Spirit. And sometimes it's simply to reflect back and see where you are in God's own belovedness.
And you've really given us some precious time here and some very important things to think about. And I look forward to breaking bread with you.
Likewise.
And with Eboo. That will be a wonderful day in itself.